Okay, so good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to the Career Awareness webinar on Equity Research Analyst as a profession being hosted by the Dreamcatchers today. So, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Surbhi Kumar, and I'm the one who founded the Dreamcatchers. I'll start with just telling you a little bit about our firm. So here we go. Who we are? We are primarily an education consulting firm, and our mission is to assist students in realizing their dream of obtaining quality and best fit education. So, how do we do that? Primarily for grade 9th and grade 10th students, as you would agree that they are confused about the right streams to select, the right subject to select, right? Or the subject combinations, including electives. And for grade 11th and grade 12th student, it's primarily like which course to go for, what are the colleges they should target, right? So specifically for grade 8 to grade 12 students who are looking for stream or subject selection or course or college selection services, we start with something which is called as a psychometric assessment test. A psychometric assessment test assesses the student's aptitude, their work interest area, to an extent their personality as well, which of course evolves with more exposure and time. But it gives, on the basis of their unique aptitude and work interest, it gives a detailed career fitment report, which acts as a starting point for the student, and they can take it ahead and do further research. At the same time, they can engage with us in terms of an individualized and a personalized counseling. Through that counseling, we provide them details around different career pathways to achieve the same goal, and even an action plan or a detailed action plan as needed. We also provide our services in higher education admission guidance space. With lot of options being there, it is becoming again a lot more confusing, and there is a lot of competition as well. So we help both in the overseas universities admissions as well as Indian universities, and both for undergraduate and postgraduate courses. Okay, now specifically if I talk about services in this space, we start with something which we call as like profile assessment, and then helping you elevate your profile and build it further. Helping you in country and course shortlisting, specifically if you are looking for study abroad as an option. Best fit college mapping, not only the high rank institutes, but best fit is the key word here. Helping you with statement of purpose and even letter of recommendation, helping your recommenders with guidance so that they can write an effective LOR for you. Scholarship guidance, interview preparation wherever it is needed, and visa guidance as well. So I hope like this specific information helps you in terms of understanding who we are and how we can serve you better to achieve your dreams or achieve your career goals. With that, let's start with the topic of the day today. I wanted to just briefly talk about the career which we are going to talk in depth today. Definitely, we are no expert, but we at Dreamcatchers, we try to act as a conduit between the students who are planning to make their career in specific field and getting an authentic voice through an industry professional who can share their expertise with the students. So I know most of you who have registered here, you're high school students. Some of you, you're already pursuing your bachelor's in a finance related course as such. So some of you may already know about what an equity research is. But let's just talk about the foundational thing. What it is a specialized area of finance that analyzes companies, industry, and the economy to help investors make informed decisions about their investments. And how does an equity research or an equity research analyst help in this process? They analyze the businesses through different methods and methodologies, primarily analyzing the financial performance of the organization, their long-term goals. They produce detailed reports, provide recommendations, which is primarily again buy, hold, or sell a particular stock, which helps the investors both on the institutional side and even on the retail side to make the right investment calls. With that, I'm very pleased to welcome Ashwin to our conversation today. And as I mentioned that we try to give our students, understanding of a profession from an authentic source itself. So, no better than Ashwin when we have to talk about equity research as a profession. So, Ashwin, I might just start with a short intro of you, and so that like our audience know who you are, what kind of experience you bring to the forum, and then we can get started with our fireside chat from there.
Sure. Thanks, Surbhi. Thanks for having me. And morning, everyone. So, in terms of, so I head research at Ambit Capital. I also track the tech and the internet space for Ambit. So just to give you some perspective in terms of Ambit, it's a 26-year-old full service investment bank with 5 businesses. I represent institutional equities, which is a business that acts as a broker for domestic institutions and foreign investors investing into India. Uh,
Mm.
the second business that we have is investment banking, where we help in the M&A and fundraising for corporates. The third business for us is private wealth management, and then we have an asset management piece and also a small and medium enterprise related NBFC. So that's a brief in terms of my background.
Thank you so much. And I would like to add on a few things to your introduction. You were like too kind and too humble, but just to help our audience understand even your academic journey. So I am quite impressed with your academic journey per se. So you hold the BTech from IIT Kharagpur, PGDBM from IIM Lucknow, followed by MS in Computational Finance from Carnegie Mellon University, USA, and you're also a CFA charter holder. So, with that, I would like to welcome again Ashwin. Thank you so much for giving your time to our students, and I do see some of the parents as well in the audience. So, thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Urbi.
So, with that, I just want to tell all the students and even parents out here, you can also ask your questions through the Q&A or chat box of the Zoho platform. And if any of you want to go live in terms of asking your question, just raise your hand and I will open the floor for you. Thank you so much. With that, let me start with my first question itself. Can you briefly describe your current role at Ambit, Ashwin?
So I head research, wherein we have a close to a 35-member team of analysts who look at economy, strategy, ESG, accounting governance, which is a new field, and also on tracking different sectors in the economy. So I handle the overall research. I also am the analyst for tech. So I cover the IT services, SaaS names, as well as the new age internet companies like, say, a Zomato or a Policy Bazaar for that matter.
Interesting. So maybe I would take you back almost 2 decades as such, and I would pose a question which I'm sure many of the students would want to understand. Why did you really decide to build your career in the field of finance and again, particularly equity research? And then walk us through your career trajectory, how it has been so far.
So I think there are two kinds of people. Some people who know what they want to do. Some people who are open, who still don't have an idea in terms of what they wanted to do. So as early as say 11th, 12th, uh, I was deciding between commerce and science at that point in time. My mother is a chartered accountant. My father is an engineer.
Okay.
So from that perspective, was good in science, took over science, prepared for JE and got through IIT. So I did chemical engineering at IIT.
Okay.
After that, did my MBA from IIM Lucknow. It was between, say, engineering and an MBA. That there was that inclination towards finance. Obviously, coming from a Marwadi family did help in terms of interest, because there were family members who were say in the equity space, the family was involved in terms of, say, applying in IPOs and stuff like that. So when you were a kid, you knew things about money management. So that was one of the aspects that drew you towards finance at that point in time. But actually, after MBA, I joined Infosys, uh, still in the financial services space, because 99 wasn't a great year in terms of getting out and getting a finance job. So there were two ways of getting into, say, equity research. Either you could land a job straight away after MBA, or you could keep that streak of finance running, and over a period of time use your industry experience to get into that space. So that's how I kind of began my journey. And why would someone look for you when you are, say, working in IT? So I worked for around 6.5 years in IT for a equity research role. So you had to keep that streak of say finance running, and which is where I did my MS in computational finance. Also started up my CFA when I was working in the IT industry. Completed it when I moved to uh, so, uh, so that's one thing I think for students as well, is that uh, after 12th or after your graduation, your education does not stop. Uh, I think even as of now, we keep on trying to understand companies, trying to understand industries, and that's something that you need to be prepared for as you go along, because you have to continue to elevate in terms of your profession. Uh, so the reason, of course, was interest in finance, but it is something that evolved over a period of time. If I were to tell you, in my MBA, I applied in all core functions. I applied in finance, in core finance. I applied in marketing, in core marketing, and I applied in systems companies, in core systems. So I wasn't the one who was, say, hell bent on doing this one thing. But it's always good to have that clarity. Wasn't the case in my case.
Great. Thank you so much for bringing this point forward through your journey itself. So, I would want to emphasize two things which you kind of mentioned already. One is it is okay not to know what you want to do in your career journey, like being high school students or being like just early in your education journey as well. It's okay, but what is more important is you being a little sure around what you don't want to do. That's something which I really kind of emphasize to our students, that elimination is as important as like kind of selecting or keeping your career options open. That's number one. Number two, lifelong learning. We are in an era where, like, irrespective of your profile, irrespective of your technical studies or other studies, you would have to continue upskilling and at times reskilling yourself. So don't get complacent with, oh my god, I got into this institute and I am done and I don't have to study further after this. No, that's not going to happen. So I just wanted to emphasize these 2 points to all our students, which I generally do through our conversations as well. But given you said so, I thought it's a better space to re-emphasize the same. Okay, I do see a few questions coming up. So, Rakshita, Abhay, we will be covering the questions which you are asking shortly as well. So, maybe when I ask the question, I'll pick up yours as well simultaneously. Okay, so just be a little patient there. So let me move on to my next question for you, Ashwin, which is primarily uh, to help the students understand what is a typical work day or a work week for an equity research analyst. Like they just get like a big picture there, as well as to an extent granular too, which can help them understand how the day goes, what kind of activities are primarily done, so touching upon even the key roles and responsibilities as well.
So I think it all depends in terms of, there are, as I mentioned, there are four different segments from an equity research perspective. You could be an economist, you could be a strategist, you could be an equity research analyst, or you could look at, say, ESG, accounting, governance, those kind of aspects. So almost everything involves, say, coming up with new products or research on either a company, industry, an aspect. This helps the investors in terms of taking a more informed decision on their investments. In addition, you are keeping a track of what's happening outside. So every event has an implication from a stock price move perspective. There are events related to M&A. There are events related to divestitures. Those are all things that you are tracking. So build up a habit in terms of reading newspapers from the start. And then, in addition to this, it is not just a desk job. So every the more knowledge that you build is through meeting corporates, meeting experts, meeting industry experts in that space. And you also provide access to investors, to some of them, to get a more independent opinion about a particular topic or a particular industry. So it's about coming up with research, marketing that research, and adding auxiliary services like corporate access, expert access beyond that.
Mhm. Great. Thank you so much for that, Ashwin. And my next question is where I will include Rakshita's question as well, wherein if you can throw some light in terms of, because when we talk about finance, it's a very broad field and there are like different roles. So for an equity research analyst, how is that role different from other finance fields like being in investment banking, or her particular question is how is it different from fund management as such?
Yeah, so I think there are these two demarcations from an equity perspective. There is buy side and there is sell side. So buy side is what you talked about in terms of fund management, wherein these are people who get the money and they are investing on your behalf that money and trying to generate a return with a particular risk profile. Sell side is what equity research is about, wherein we are essentially helping investors, and these are typically institutional investors, in terms of taking a much more informed decision on whether to buy a stock, sell a stock, uh, what to do with their intersectoral positioning, that should you buy IT or should you buy banks at this point in time. So we are essentially helping them take a much more informed decision and providing service to them through, say, corporate access, expert access, even some of the groundwork that they would want us to do, that they want to get into a particular aspect or a particular company in depth. That is what equity research is about. And the third is from an investment banking perspective. This is more transactional, wherein this could involve advising companies on merger and acquisitions. This could involve helping companies in terms of raising funds. It could be both private companies which are not listed, could be public companies which are listed. It could even involve, say, restructuring of those companies in terms of, say, hive offs, or multiple listings of those companies. So there are these different aspects, and the skill levels, while there is some level of marketing in everything, which is there. So it's say half the job is marketing, half the job is that particular aspect of finance.
Great. Thank you for that response, Ashwin. I hope, Rakshita, that helps answer your question. And I can see a follow up from your question. Actually, I think you're more interested in fund management as such. So we have a full webinar there as well. We have a recording of that as well. We can share that with you and you can listen into that as well. With that, let me move on to my next question, which is again touching the educational background, Ashwin. Like, so it would be helpful for students to understand that how has your educational qualification and background really contributed to your career as an equity research analyst. And per you, what do you think? What are the specific qualifications, or again, experiences, be in the form of internships or so, can be considered essential for someone who wants to pursue the career in this field? And I would say pursuing is one thing and thriving in that career is another. So basically thriving in this field as such.
So I think from an education perspective, in my case, engineering or science is about logic. So it helps you in terms of building your logic, gives you the framework for say logical thinking. MBA post that is more about having the tools in place to be able to analyze companies, to be able to analyze industries, to be able to drive correlations. And then CFA is something which is more related to the investment profession, which gives you the tools and techniques in terms of how do you come up with a value of a particular stock or a particular business. And based on that, where the price is and what do you think could happen. So it's a combination of trying to understand the industry, being logical about it, and then having the tools in place to be able to value a particular company or assess the impact of any event on a particular stock. Now, there are different paths. So I'm not saying just engineering is the way to go. A CA or an MBA is typically the way to get into this profession. Having a CFA is an add-on, which is helpful in terms of getting into the profession. The way it typically works at our place is we take a lot of CA interns who work with us for say 6 months, and then we with a particular sector analyst, and then we absorb those people. There are people who take uh, campus hires or say rankers in terms of their associate hiring. So from that perspective, multiple paths to it, but it is more about like one area where it is a slightly restricted field. You have say 50 brokers out there in India, and you will have say 10, 12, 15 sectors to be tracked. So it's a small field in terms of lead analysts and then an associate below. So it's a question of what have you done to showcase that you are interested in the profession, and that's how you differentiate and get noticed.
Great. So I have received two interesting questions, and I believe one of those you have already answered. But Vidyut, I'll still take that up. Is it compulsory to do a bachelor's like engineering or something different? Or if you are clear on finance, can you just take a course in finance?
So it's not compulsory to do engineering. Like in our team, it's a combination of people with engineering and MBA backgrounds and people who are say CAs or economists or even MSc in finance kind of people. So it's not just about finance. I think the bigger part of equity research is being able to understand businesses.
Mhm.
So valuations are more about technique. There's obviously some judgment involved there, and you can be right or wrong about that judgment. But it is more about trying to see and forecast how a particular business will evolve over a period of time, and based on that come up with the value for that particular business. So not necessary that being an engineer is not a necessary condition for getting into the space.
Great. Now there is one question from Amit. I think it was primarily when we were trying to understand kind of the roles and responsibility of an equity research analyst and what's their typical day or week like. So his questions is how many hours of week or how many hours of work in a week? So, Ashwin, please share your thoughts there.
So, so it's a question of how much effort you can put. So work is endless. I could decide to write something on Infosys today and a TCS tomorrow. So it's a question of how much effort, and because you have those 12 hours out there, and how you use it in terms of coming up with research, reaching out to your clients, building your understanding about that particular topic. So I would say it's hard work, but I have seen people during my career who are able to manage time much better, uh, and uh, uh, and not work weekends. Uh, I've also seen people who have who put in, say, 70 hours, 80 hours as well in a week, uh, in terms of the profession. So it's more about when you like something, it doesn't appear work. If you don't like something, then you have to labor. So from that perspective, this is a profession that pays for learning. And from that perspective, if you like that, then you can consider reading a newspaper or reading an article as work. You can consider that to be relaxation as well.
Great. So, Amit, you have to be prepared to put the right efforts and don't be afraid to put in efforts there. Okay, with that, Ashwin, the next question is which I usually get from many of my students, irrespective of the career we talk about, which is more around like what are the opportunities of growth and advancement in a particular career? Like when we start from an entry level, what can we expect? How does it flow in terms of number of years or the kind of experience? If someone starts just as an entry level person, maybe like an associate, then how does they move up?
So I think there's no time bound thing in equity research. It's pretty meritocratic that way. So typically people start in as either interns or associates. So it's interns, associates, where you're assisting a particular lead analyst in terms of his work. And then you get on to become, say, a junior analyst covering a few stocks, maybe a lead analyst after that, covering a complete sector. Post that, you could be, say, a cluster head, or a head of research. So cluster head, I mean, say, banking, financial services, insurance is a cluster. So you could be heading that cluster. And then, so it's a relatively flatter kind of uh, uh, kind of a profession from a hierarchy perspective. Typical layers between, say, the associate and the head of research is at best two or three. So from that perspective, it's not a very hierarchical kind of structure. Your value is determined by your strength in terms of research. Your value is determined by how your clients recognize you in terms of your research. There are obviously diversions possible. Uh, so say associates do move into investment banking. They do move into private equity. uh, they also move on the corporate side, on the strategy or the investor relations kind of opportunities to open up. So it's a question of buy side opportunities, which is the fund side opportunities, also open up. So from that perspective, there are these sideways opportunities possible, and if you grow into the profession, you could go up to, say, the head of equity or the CEO of the business.
Great. Yeah, thank you for shedding some light on this. And again, like students, you will have to understand that we are irrespective of, again, like the kind of profession you are in. In corporates, there will be a time that the hierarchical structure, even if that's in place, may dilute over time. So everything comes back to your own skills. You kind of raising your hand for the opportunities or showcasing what's unique about your thought process or your contribution in terms of any kind of delivery, and you can grab a good opportunity as well. So that is irrespective of the profession you are in. So a lot depends upon you as an individual too, besides like whatever is the structure in the organization as such. Okay.
Just to add, I think we've seen in our careers people who have from, say, in terms of time periods, in 2 years, people moving from an associate to a lead analyst role and doing pretty good at that. And we've even seen people with 5 6 years still in that uh, associate role. So it's all, as Surbi mentioned, you've got to raise your hands and take up the responsibility.
Great. Amit, we will cover this question shortly. I know it's a very, very important one. We'll definitely cover that. So, just like maybe 2 or 3 questions down, we will talk about it. So, now, Ashwin, because again, majority of our students here are high schoolers, right? So, from grade 9th to grade 12th. So I would want to understand that looking back in time, what do you think were like specific subjects or even going beyond subjects? What were some specific experiences during high school that you believe have helped you in your professional journey so far?
I think maths as a subject, which I used to like then, mental maths in particular, is something like we these days depend upon Excel and calculators. I think being able to assess things faster is something which is important in this profession. You've got to be thinking on your feet. Say whether news flow comes in, as to what could be the implication of something like that. So that's something that's possibly helped me. The second is in general awareness about the country, the politics, the industry, the trends in those industries, and reading about it. Uh, so I think maybe 11th, 12th would be when we used to get economic times at our home at that time, and used to appear boring at that point in time. But being able to read some of the boring stuff also helps in terms of building your understanding on what's happening. So you have a sense on what's happening around, because there are cross correlations between what's happening in one industry and what happens in the other.
Great. I would like to extend upon this question and like taking your response itself. So you mentioned maths as one of the subjects. Now, like with the national education policy in place, like there is some kind of flexibility which is being offered in the national curriculums. And when we talk about international boards, they are as is like very flexible. They are not like stream specific per se, though in general in some of the courses you still require to have like PCM or PCB particularly. That's a different thing. But say if you go back in time and now when you have kind of been in the industry for 20 plus years, was there any subject you wish like great, like if I would have got an opportunity to study during my high school years, that would have been wonderful?
I think one area where focus needs to be there is on communication.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's something which was missing in our times. That is something that we go through even now in terms of training for even us, including our teams, on communication, because it's not just about coming up with research. It's also about marketing that research and marketing yourself. So that's one area where courses would have helped. I think being able to narrate a story, for example, that's something that, say, international schools or schools outside India do a much better job at, compared to us being very very focused in terms of, say, compartmentalized subjects. So I think that's one thing which I can think of, which is something you got to work on. It'll help you in terms of every profession.
Okay, so communication in a way more like storytelling skills, particularly as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Ashwin. So let me move on to my next question. Again, you have kind of covered it to an extent, but I think there is more which could be added from your end, where educational pathways, courses are definitely there for students. They can learn from it. But when we talk about the core skills and competencies which someone should have to really, again, I will emphasize on thriving in this career, what do you think those are?
So I think some of these things are, say, attitude. Attitude is the most important thing. I would put it ahead of intellect in terms of this. Because and the second is, say, finding the stories behind numbers. So every number in isolation has a story behind it. So that, and always being inquisitive is the third piece. Like you had a
Yeah.
Paresh Rawal film where he had a question mark on his head. I think it's something that that keeps you on your toes in terms of questions that keep on coming to your mind even now, and you're trying to find answers to them in terms of why is this happening. So I think attitude, hard work, intellect is important, but I would put it behind, and then say things like uh, being inquisitive about stuff, working towards honing your skills, reading up what's happening in terms of the industry, in terms of the companies.
Okay, so let me extend upon this question again. So, given you are head of equity research and managing director at Ambit, and you are definitely involved in building the team, hiring people. So, let's say if you have to hire an associate or an entry level equity research analyst, how do you really go about kind of judging or getting a sense of whether these skills and competencies which you mentioned are really there in that individual, and that individual is actually the right fit for the role?
I think the way we go about our selection process is that obviously there's a short test that we take, which is more around the financial skills of the individual. But beyond that, we have interviews and case studies.
Yeah.
Like this is a profession where time is of essence. You're always short on time, and you've got to come up with something good in a short period of time. So
Mhm.
we give people, say, 7 days in terms of coming up with their view on a particular stock that they might not have looked at. We're not looking at, say, 100% completeness, but within that short period of time, how much effort can you put through? What are the insights that you bring about from that? And that's our selection methodology. It could be different in different places, but that is how we go about. And there are cases where we have hired people who have approached us saying that I worked on this company. This is what my model on this company is. This is what I did, wrote on this company, and which to an extent shows that there is interest in terms of pursuing this field, or people would have read on their own beyond their curriculum, books on say valuations, books on investing, have drawn from that, not just about reading. So we've had, say, even in cases of hiring, say, rankers as well. You
Mhm.
might be very good in bookish knowledge, but there's another person uh, who feels more interested in terms of the space, because you're looking to build a long-term career here. And if
Mhm.
you don't like it, it is not all grammar.
Mhm. Great. So I think it's kind of an eye opener for some of the undergraduate students here, especially I see there are quite a few people who registered with us who are from Narsi Munji. They are doing their BSc in finance, and I think they are looking for internships as well. So maybe this response may help you to an extent. Okay, now with that, let's move on to talk about the challenges as well. So, given as I mentioned in the start of the talk itself, we want to give students kind of an authentic look towards a career so that they know both the sides of it. We'll talk about the rewards as well shortly, but what are the challenges? We can start with that so that they know whether this is the career where they would want to kind of stay invested for a good amount of time of their professional life, say 10, 15 years. And careers are not going to be linear. I always tell my students, you might change or get into different career paths going forward as well. But from a starting standpoint, maybe 10, 15 years is something which you can look for being in a single career. So please talk about the challenges which you feel are there in this field, specifically again, equity research analyst.
I think it's like a doctor's job. Essentially, you could have at say 10, 11 in the night an announcement coming in terms of a company acquiring another company, or some development happening in a particular company, and you've got to comment on that the next day morning. Typically, our morning meetings start at 7:45. So you've got to analyze and come up with a response or a note on something like that in the morning. So which is where it's like a doctor's profession. I typically joke about this profession that the day you work harder, you got to get up early as well. So most other jobs are just the opposite, wherein the day you work harder, you can relax the next day.
Next week.
This is when you have a report coming out, when you have an event late in the night. You've got to be the one talking in the morning to your salespeople to tell it to the clients, or you directly are getting calls from clients on what the implications of something like this are. So there's that thing that you've got to be prepared about. The second is in terms of hard work. There's no substitute for hard work. The third is it might or might not come naturally to you in terms of selling what you're writing. So it's not just about doing research and coming out with something insightful. That has to reach to your clients. So there's a selling job also involved, and clients might be easy on you, clients might be hard on you. That's part of any job, and these are pretty evolved investors out there. So being able to get their mind share is something which is important to do. And then you've got to be on your toes in terms of continuing to move up. And what should be mentioned, it's not a linear career. The business is dependent on how the brokerage volumes does and how your firm does within that piece. So it's not a linear uptick in terms of your total compensation every year. You could have very good years and you could have bad years, and you could also lose your job. So those are all things wherein being confident about your own skills and being prepared about some of these aspects is what helps in terms of these professions.
Great. Thank you so much for touching upon that. And in a way, you kind of indicated some of the rewards. You can elaborate more on the rewards. And I would take Amit's question as well, where besides, like, definitely there are a lot of rewards, but we would want to also understand how rewarding it could be financially, basically what kind of remuneration one can expect. And Amit is specifically asking starting pay. So please give your thoughts there.
Yeah, so it all depends upon organizations, but say an internship would be more in that 6 to 8 lakh kind of a starting pay range. Associates typically across the industry would start between say 10, 12 to say 15, 16, anywhere. There's a range out there. And then so in terms of associates, it could be starting at that. Some could be even as high as 20, 25 in terms of that. And at the analyst level, so there is a fixed component, there is a variable component in it. Variable is dependent upon your own performance, your business performance, and the company's performance also. So you could go as high as say over a period of time, it can be 300 to $500,000 as well. But it does take time, and you could be 1 year at a particular level, and you could be lower the next year as well. So from a starting pay perspective, more like say 6-7 lakhs to associate salaries in the 10 to 20, in some cases even higher than that.
Okay. So, Ashwin, can you kind of dissect the variable pay component a little bit more? I know you mentioned how your business perform, but I think it would help the students here to, and especially like the students who are doing their undergraduate right now, to get a little more sense of it and how big of a component it could be from when someone looks at the entire CTC per se.
So I think it could range from like zero to even as high as 150%, depending on the level that you are at the associate levels, slightly more in that 20 to 50, 20 to 60 kind of range, typically if you're doing your job right. So from that perspective, it's a meritocratic profession. There are, say, objectively parameters to look at in terms of what you are coming out with, what is the recognition from clients that you are getting, what is your intensity in terms of calling your clients. So all of those parameters go into the decision making. Obviously, the business that the firm generates is a factor in terms of that variable pay. So it's slightly different from say IT services, where IT services has a variable pay which is part of their total compensation. So if you get say 10 lakhs, the variable pay could be say 1.5 odd lakhs, and that could be dependent on here. There's a fixed, and then there's a variable pay.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And Smita, I will be asking your question shortly itself. I know this is again something which everyone is kind of thinking a lot and how it impacts lot many professions. So we'll talk about that too. But before that, Ashwin, also help us understand, given you have like a long inning in this profession, how do you think that the industry and the profession of an equity research analyst has kind of evolved over time? And again, taking a step further, what do you see as a future trend, and how can students prepare themselves well for that trend per se?
So I think over time, the evolution has been that it's not just about doing research. It is about selling your research. It is also about maintaining connect with corporates, industry experts, offering that as a service line. Every analyst or every equity research guy is different based on their own personalities, and you can have a mix of that. There's different styles of a equity research analyst which are there. Like some of them are say more knowledge focused. Some of them are more say stock price focused in terms of getting their stock price right. Some of them are much more closer to the managements of companies, and which is where they get that access over to their clients. And some are very good with what's happening on the ground in terms of channel checks. It's a combination of all of that. that is required in different measures. So that's something that has changed over a period of time, that you need to build those facets of your personality. Uh, so that's how the profession has obviously evolved. There are different ways of looking at it. Uh, so there are, say, liquidity related aspects that you've got to look at in terms of how much is the fund flow coming into the country or into your sector, which could have impacts. The sentiments are also very important in terms of how you go about doing your research. So there are these external factors and external linkages which are continuing to go up. What happens in China impacts India. What happens in US impacts India. So from that perspective, being aware of those global linkages is something which is important. It's a very competitive field because, as I mentioned, there are, say, 50 odd brokers and say 15 sectors, so around somewhere around 70, 750 odd people. Uh, and these guys are all intelligent individuals, driven individuals, and you've got to differentiate yourself against them.
Great. So my next question is, again, as I was saying, this is something which is always on everyone's mind these days. It is particularly around how do you see technology and particularly artificial intelligence impacting role of financial professionals in general, and particularly equity research analysts. And Smita really asked, don't you think AI will take over this job?
So I think in terms of the basics, so things like putting in data, things like getting key takeaways out from a call. The more mundane parts of the job will get taken up by AI over a period of time. I think AI can be your friend in this profession if you're able to use it much more judiciously. So it can speeden up the task of finding information compared to if you were doing it more manually earlier. So which is where what I was talking about, being able to elevate your skills is important. How do you use AI as a friend is some or something that adds on to your capabilities is what is going to be even more important. And gradually automation will go up. Like a typical associate right now, when a result comes out, spend, say, half an hour in terms of putting in those numbers. Uh, if that can be taken up by AI, he can spend more time in terms of analyzing that result. And that will be more value enhancing compared to putting in those numbers. There is some merit in putting in those numbers because you get the correlations. But from that perspective, I think our view is that this is where differentiation will start to matter even more, because the mundane updates, the mundane work will get automated.
Great. Yeah. So whatever is more around like thinking, and critical thinking, that's something which more or less AI cannot take that portion of the job itself. So that depends on the
Yeah, yeah.
analyst.
And there are always nuances that are difficult for AI to find. I've not found a tool yet which can put Infosys numbers when they are reported in a Jiffy into an Excel in a way that we want. So yes, there is an opportunity for someone to do that. We ourselves are working on some of those initiatives, but uh, that's something that would help in terms of and clients are also looking to pay more for differentiated pieces of research and not just updates. So I think from that perspective, how you use it is going to be much more important.
Great. So, Ashwin, like when I interact with students and I have, with many of the students, I have seen kind of like a syndrome, which is new shiny object career or new shiny career, be it data science these days, artificial intelligence, machine learning, to an extent, given what they know about the financial rewards of some of the professions like investment banking, equity research, or so. So they come to me in the conversation with certain preconceived notion about the career, maybe without doing a proper research or so, right? And that's not just for one career but for many when we discuss with them. So in my career awareness webinar, there is one question which I definitely ask each of my guests, which is, given this platform you have, if you get an opportunity to bust some of the myths related to that specific career or misconceptions which are kind of floating around and which can help the high school students a bit to know the true reality, that's something which I would want to ask you as well.
Yeah, so I did touch upon some of it in terms of the fact that this is not all glamour. From outside, it appears as a profession where you can predict a stock movement and you can help somebody make money. But there's a lot of grunt work that is involved in terms of say typically when you are covering a company, you're looking to put in say 16, 20 quarters of data of that company. You are looking to read up on what the management has said over those 20 odd quarters. What are their annual reports saying? You're talking to the company, you're talking to the channel, you're doing a lot of groundwork before you come up with your own view in terms of what this stock could be valued at, and you can be completely wrong about it still. So from that perspective, there's a lot of grunt work. You have a lot of clients that you are servicing, and these clients are pretty demanding. So you are doing queries for them, which could be data queries, which could be uh, say picking up stuff from somewhere and sending it across to them. Now, each of those things, if you take it to be a core, then it'll not help you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you look at why somebody is asking you that question, that is when you learn that this is an aspect that somebody is looking at that gives you an idea in terms of coming up with something that 10 other people might be interested in this aspect, and that gives you ideas on what you can write and what you can convey to clients. But there is that part of work which is there. There is that part of work wherein you might have done all your groundwork and your call isn't working. And you've got to not hide when your call isn't working. You've got to again go back to the same client who you have told to buy that stock, and that stock is falling. So it takes courage in terms of going back. It takes courage in terms of acknowledging that this is a place where we made a mistake, and this is how we are now thinking. So first, it is hard work, it is grunt work. You might think that why is somebody asking me to put all this data in? But when you spend some time looking at that data, you get to understand what are the trends in terms of that data. Why uh, the why comes to you a little later in your career. Uh, in terms of you might think क्यों करा रहा है मुझसे ये सब कोई. So
Mm-hmm.
that is uh, those are some of the areas, and the stuff around that. There's a quarterly cycle in this profession. Post every quarter there are results out, and come whatever may, in the day of the results, you've got to come out with a report in the morning. What I mentioned initially in terms of it being like a doctor's job and there's an emergency out there. So I think some of those aspects, there's excitement, no doubt. Uh, but sometimes you don't want that excitement. So that's something which is part and parcel of this job, which you got to be prepared about.
True. And you mentioned about glamour, and I like from my own experience talking to a couple of students out, even like some of those are there in this session as well. So sometimes their parents are kind of hooked up on CNBC or CNBC Awas, and then they see a research analyst speaking up on television. So they get carried away by that aspect as well, to be honest. I've heard those stories too. So they think it's all like glamour there.
Yeah, so if you are like research also you could do for retail clients, there you got to be much more visible than when you are doing it for institutional clients. So that's part of their job. But then obviously you see on Twitter uh, what is the kind of responses they get when something doesn't work out
Work.
for them. So we
True.
don't have that kind of a problem.
True. So I know we are over time by a minute, but Ashwin, if you and our audience, if you can stay maybe for 3-4 minutes more or maximum 5, we would cover few other questions as well. So Ashwin, is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay. So the last question before we go into the fun part is, if you could go back in time, is there anything you would do differently in your career journey?
I think some of it is luck as
Okay.
well. If I go back, I was on the waiting list for a marketing role with Asian Paints, and I got into Infosys, and that Asian Paints offer converted at a later date. My profession could have been completely different
Mm-hmm.
in that, but it's not. So I think. I don't go back and look at things that this could have been different. I think you can make the best of whatever you are in. Uh, you can always cry about the fact that had you stayed here or had you stayed there, you could have possibly made more money.
Mm-hmm.
But I think be happy with what you have and do well at whatever you are looking to do.
Great. I think words of wisdom there. So, with that, I would actually move on to, which is what I usually do with all my guests, which is more because these are sometimes it tends to be like more serious conversations when you talk about career. And it's important to know the person more than what they are in terms of their career, because their other aspects can also help you in making an informed career decision. So, with that, I would want to ask some fun questions. So maybe if you are ready for a rapid fire, then I can shoot those away.
Sure, sure.
Okay. So one fun fact about you, Ashwin.
So I think you need downtime, and my downtime is sports, madcap comedies, which don't make sense to a lot of people.
Okay.
But some of those things where you can kind of completely take your mind off what you are doing is what gets you, say, replenished.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other is, if not in investment research industry and your current role, then maybe alternatively, what would you have pursued, like given a choice as such?
So I think maybe would have been continuing in tech. Uh, mm, Maybe a startup is where it would have been. I think I did incubate a startup with a few friends of mine when I was in
Oh.
IT. So I think possibly that would have been that was a space where I was doing okay, and from that perspective, that whole shift to equity research happened. If it
Mm-hmm.
hadn't happened, would have been still in tech.
Okay. Okay. Next is, if you could have one superpower, and I would emphasize only one, then what would you have asked for?
Something which can help you manage time much better, so that you have more time at hand for other things.
I think that's the one which each of us would want for sure. Okay. Any favorite quote and any favorite book?
So I think a favorite quote is something that Warren Buffett said once, that it's better to hang out with people who are better than you,
Hmm.
and pick out associates whose behavior is better than yours, and you will gradually drift in their direction.
Hmm.
So it's been part of like since my school days. I think we were 14 of us who got through JE at that point in time, and
Okay.
you can imagine I come from Kota, which is the IIT capital. So from that perspective, I think being with those people, and there were people who were highly motivated, much more intelligent than you were. That does help. So that's probably one quote. And in terms of some of the books, I think I read some of these stories of companies. So the Google story,
Yeah.
Nuts, which is on Southwest Airlines, or maybe an intelligent investor, uh, would be some of the books.
Great. I think with that, we come to the close of our session. Maybe, Ashwin, if you want to give any final advice to our students here, and even like I see like almost four parents as well. Anything for them? Any final piece of advice?
I think don't beat yourself too hard. Just focus on what you like, and try putting in the effort in that direction. And whatever profession you choose, you would be successful.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for giving your like R plus on a Sunday morning. And I'm pretty sure this is very insightful. I'm already receiving few comments. So Amit has said, thank you so much for your valuable time. And I think with these sessions, as I said, you are getting to hear what someone who has been in an industry is kind of sharing. So that will again help taking an informed decision. And we will continue to bring more such conversations as well. So stay tuned. And thank you to our audience as well for staying till the end, up until we meet next time. So bye for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Surbi. Thanks, everyone.